Okay, so get ready because today we're taking a deep dive into, well, it's going to get kind of heavy. We're going into the Argyle Cry subreddit.
Yeah.
A post about relationship betrayal just blew up over there. And it brings up some seriously tough questions about, trust and forgiveness and,
Yep.
like, what does it even mean to move on from something like that?
What I think is so interesting here is that this post, it goes way beyond just like a typical cheating thing. It really gets at these deeper fears everyone has about commitment and all, especially when you bring in the fact that his girlfriend got pregnant by another guy during their break.
Right. And for anyone who's not familiar with it, Our Guy Cry is basically like the place where guys go to
Yeah.
just, let it all out. In this post, it's like a full-on cry for help in all caps.
Exactly. It's raw, vulnerable, just lays it all out there. It's like the poster is just grappling with this huge dilemma. His girlfriend wants to get back together, but he's just reeling from this betrayal. And I think that's why it's resonating with so many people, because it forces us to think about those universal fears of heartbreak and like just not knowing what's going to happen in our own relationships.
Okay, so let's break down what happened. The original poster, we'll just call him OP. He was already dealing with some mental health stuff when he and his girlfriend decided to take a break. And then, well, this is where things get complicated. During the break, she ends up pregnant by another guy.
Wow, yeah, that brings up a big question right away. What were the rules of this break? Did they set any boundaries? Was it clear what would be considered cheating while they were apart?
Yeah, because a break, that can mean so many different things to different people. Like, did they actually talk about what was off limits? Were they still talking at all? Or was it like total radio silence? Those details are really important when you're trying to understand, the whole dynamic of what happened and how bad the betrayal really was.
Absolutely, and this is where attachment theory comes in. Our attachment style totally influences how we approach relationships and how we deal with conflict. Like for someone with an anxious attachment style, a break without clear communication can be so stressful, it can trigger all these insecurities.
Reading between the lines, it sounds like OP maybe had those anxieties even before the break. He mentions feeling uneasy about a specific friend of theirs, and wouldn't you know it, that friend turns out to be the father.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that adds another layer of complexity to the whole emotional fallout. It's not just the infidelity itself, but it's like the confirmation of a fear he already had. The betrayal is amplified because it validates those earlier anxieties.
Yeah, it's like a punch to the gut. And of course, the comment section is just a whirlwind of opinions. Some people are telling him to run for the hills. Others are saying they should try couples therapy, or maybe even look into adoption if the girlfriend is willing.
It's interesting to see such a range of responses, right? It shows how differently people view commitment and forgiveness. Some people put self-preservation above everything else. Like their advice is basically telling OP to protect himself from getting hurt again. And then others are more focused on empathy and the idea that people can change. They think that with enough effort and professional help, the relationship could actually heal.
Yeah, it's like everyone is bringing their own relationship history to the table
Mm-hmm.
and giving advice based on what they would do. But they don't actually know the whole story.
Right. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's like a tiny little window into how we as a society deal with these super complicated relationship problems. There's no easy answer, no one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay, but can we talk about the elephant in the room for a sec? The child. This post barely even mentions what it would mean to raise a kid that's not biologically his.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge piece of this that we need to talk about. It's not just the emotional stuff either. There are legal and logistical things to consider too, like paternity rights and custody arrangements, and how involved the biological father will be. All those things could have a major impact on OP's life if he decides to stay.
Right, and not to mention all the societal pressures and judgments. People still have a lot of opinions about men raising children who aren't biologically theirs.
For sure. Those societal expectations can add a lot of stress and insecurity, both for the guy and for the child. We need to talk about these kinds of family structures more openly, to like destigmatize them.
It's definitely a lot to think about, and I'm sure it's weighing heavily on OP as he's reading all this advice. One commenter said something that really stuck with me, though. They said, even if OP still loves his girlfriend, that doesn't automatically mean they're meant to be together.
That's so true. It's such an important distinction. Love is a powerful emotion, sure, but it doesn't magically fix all your relationship problems. You need compatibility, shared values, trust. Those are the things that build a healthy and lasting relationship. And in this situation, the trust has been totally shattered.
Yeah, it's like trying to build a house on a foundation full of cracks.
Yeah.
You might be able to patch it up, but it's never going to be as strong as it was before.
Exactly. And that brings up another important point. OP's own mental health. He mentioned in his post that he's just starting to feel better after struggling with depression. Jumping into a situation this emotionally intense, with so many unknowns, it could set him back big time.
It's like that whole oxygen mask analogy, right? You got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone else.
Exactly. And in this case, self-care means really thinking about whether he has the emotional energy to deal with the complexities of getting back together, co-parenting, and rebuilding trust.
So it's not just about whether he still loves her, but whether he can actually see himself being happy and healthy in this situation.
Right, and that's where all the advice from Reddit, even though it's well-intentioned, it can sometimes be too simple. People say run or stay and fight for it. But the reality is much more complicated than that.
What's really interesting to me is that we're only hearing one side of the story. We don't know the girlfriend's perspective, her motivations, or if she's actually sorry for what happened.
That's huge. We're missing a big piece of the puzzle. Is she really committed to making things right? Does she understand how much she hurt him? Or is she just scared and looking for something familiar?
And without knowing that, it's impossible to say whether this relationship can actually heal and grow.
It just shows you how dangerous it is to judge based on limited information. Relationships are so complex, they're made up of individual experiences and perspectives and emotional baggage. What might seem like a clear betrayal to someone on the outside could actually be a symptom of deeper issues within the relationship itself.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, how often are we just projecting our own experiences onto other people's situations? Giving advice based on what we would do, without really understanding all the little details that make their situation unique.
It's a good reminder that relationships are rarely black and white. There's always this gray area, you know?
Yeah.
All these emotions and motivations that you can't really see from the outside.
So after going through all of this, the betrayal, the whole break thing, and what it would even mean to raise a child that's not biologically his, what stands out to you the most? Is there ever a situation where staying with his girlfriend would be the right thing for OP to do?
That's a tough one. I think ultimately it's a question that only OP can answer. But hopefully this deep dive has given him some tools to help him make that decision. It's about weighing his own needs. How much can he really forgive? And what are the potential risks and rewards of each choice?
Right, like we've given him a map of this whole emotional maze, but he's the one who has to decide which path to take.
Exactly. And no matter what he decides, I think that choice deserves respect. There's no right or wrong answer here, just the path that feels most true to him and his values.
This whole conversation has been such a roller coaster of emotions. It's made me think about my own boundaries. Like, what do I consider to be a healthy relationship? And how would I handle a situation like this if it happened to me?
That's what I love about these deep dives. They make you question your own beliefs and values, and they remind you that even when things are super messy and confusing, there's always something to learn, something to think about.
For sure. And to anyone listening who might be going through something similar, remember, you're not alone. These situations are tough, they're painful, and it's totally okay to ask for help, whether it's from friends, family, or a therapist.
It takes a lot of courage to admit you're struggling and to reach out for support.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface of what we can learn from Reddit.
Oh, definitely. There are so many stories out there, so many human experiences just waiting to be explored.
Exactly. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe to Voices of the Soul. We've got so many more conversations coming up about love, relationships, and all the mysteries of the human mind.
And if you're watching on YouTube, head over to Shauna Pelage's channel and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any other deep dives you'd like us to do.
Until next time, stay curious, keep those deep dives coming. And remember, even when things seem dark, there's always hope and a chance to grow.